I smoke a bong and watch King Kong. Old movies for young stoners. Old movies.
Welcome to Old Movies for Young Stoners, the podcast that pairs classic and cult films of the past with the right strain of cannabis to enhance your personal trip through cinema history. This week, we are losing our grip on reality with the bizarro Czech new wave craziness of Valerie and her Week of Wonders, and Federico Fellini's haunting and dreamlike Juliet of the Spirits. All right here on Old Movies for Young Stoners. And we are back on Old Movies for Young Stoners, available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and we now have our very own YouTube channel where each episode is enhanced with copious amounts of public domain stock footage, just like an Ed Wood movie. Please find us on these platforms and subscribe today. I am Bob Calhoun, your cruise director on this fantastic voyage through weed and moviedom, and the author of The Murders That Made Us, a true crime history of San Francisco, and the punk wrestling memoir, Beer, Blood, and Cornmeal, both available from ECW Press of Toronto. Ask for them at your favorite indie bookstore today. And joining me, he is our resident bud tender, your weed sommelier, if you will. Plus, he is your guide on the Hollywood Punk Rock Graveyard Tour, a walking tour visiting the final resting places of some of punk and goth's biggest legends. Let's hear it for Corey Sklar.
Thank you. Oh, you're too kind. Keep it down, everybody. Keep it down.
You can find out how to book your Hollywood Punk Rock Graveyard Tour by going to Punk Rock Graveyard Tour on Instagram. And she is the latest addition to the Old Movies for Young Stoners crew. She is an actor and voice talent with several film and television credits to her name, including the animated series Lizzie, the NBC medical drama The Night Shift, and she'll be appearing in Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, coming soon to Disney+. She is Felina Franklin.
Thank you for having me again. I am the greatest.
Agree.
Yes. Yeah, you're already overtaking our last episode in the ratings here. And, hey, Belgium, Brussels, Belgium, Canberra, Australia are listening. We're getting some play in Montreal, Canada.
Ooh, shout out to the Canadians.
4 plays in Cincinnati. Cincinnati coming on strong.
Oh, man. Hi, everybody in Cincinnati. Thanks for listening. I love your chili.
It is that chili, it's got
it's chocolate and cinnamon in it.
Cloves, lots of cloves.
Felina,
what?
They make chocolate chili and they put it on spaghetti, if you could believe that, in Cincinnati.
Oh, I'm shook to my core right now.
No, your dad, because he's a vegetarian, as I assume you are.
I am.
Greg Franklin is on assignment this week, by the way. He's on assignment.
He's looking for those old movies for stoners to watch.
Yeah, he is. He wanted a Soviet film, and I'm like, can we please take a break from this for a while? I can't deal with the pronunciations. Anyway, he's on assignment. Yeah. But yeah, there's a black bean version of it without meat. Like the classic Cincinnati chili is like, it's a bunch of spaghetti, and then there's like either beans or no beans, and then a bunch of like ground beef with lots of cloves and cinnamon. It's like a Greek flavored thing, and then a bunch of like cheddar cheese on it. Mild cheddar cheese, not sharp, mild.
Oh, okay.
And
damn.
So there's a version where you could just hold the beef and have the black beans, and that is like soul food for your dad.
Hell yeah. Oh my God, that sounds so good. I'm not usually a chili person. I'm not like, I feel like chili for me is just like a little bit too chunky. But that sounds so, I need to try a chocolate chili like now. Actually.
All right, we're going to have a podcast meetup in Cincinnati with our 4 listeners there.
Yes.
We're going to eat some Skyline chili. I cannot wait. I am a chili guy. I just want to bathe in the stuff. I love chili. And it is a chili dog summer, so everyone get your chili dogs ready to go.
Hot chili summer.
All right, Bob, I have a question for you. This week, a movie came out, and it seemed to just go into theaters and disappear as quickly as it came. People were talking about it for maybe a day, and now people aren't talking about it at all. And this movie is called Morbius, starring Jared Leto. Now, everyone, listeners out there, Bob's kind of a Silver Age comic guy. Bob, who the hell is Morbius? Did you see this movie? And what's the deal with this bullshit?
Okay, they're at the point in the Marvel movies now. Probably the DC movies too, but they're definitely at the point with the Marvel movies where they're really kind of scraping like weird shit that I never thought they would get around to making a movie out of. Where Morbius is a Spider-Man villain. He is the living vampire, which means he's not an undead supernatural creature. He's like a sci-fi vampire. He's like a scientist who goes into space and comes back this kind of vampire creature. And he fucks with Spider-Man in the 70s. And, and he eventually has his own comic for a while. And he scraps with the Marvel Dracula, like, I guess, hey, you're a poser vampire, It's like no sci-fi vampires in the supernatural vampire club. I mean, as a kid, like these characters were really cool. I mean, the Eternals is like kind of a failed Jack Kirby comic, and I never thought they would get around to making that into a movie, but they botched the Inhumans and they didn't have the X-Men yet, so they're looking for a group of superpowered outcasts. And so they finally got to I think that comic lasted 18 issues. And Morbius had his own book for a while, but he's mostly like a villain, a Spider-Man villain. It would be like making a Green Goblin movie, but I can think like that might have a little more stretch than Morbius. And then you could have Willem Dafoe.
Well, it's getting terrible reviews.
Yeah.
And it's starring the most unlikable guy in Hollywood.
Think of if Will Smith hit Jared Leto. That
would have been amazing.
We would all have his poster on our wall. I would have watched all his old movies again.
We haven't met up since the slap happened. And yeah. I just want to get, not to, everyone's been talked about, but I think it was a good thing. I think shit like that should always go down on the Oscars. And I don't know why people are like, more moralizing about it. And, if something happens on the Oscars, we should all celebrate it. Anything. It's such a boring fucking ceremony. You know what I mean?
Did you see that one tweet? I think it's like a friend of yours or somebody you follow who tweeted the fight between Robert Ryan and John Wayne, where they Robert Ryan tackled John Wayne. John Wayne called Robert Ryan's girlfriend a commie, and Robert Ryan tackled him out of plate glass.
No, I didn't see that. Did that happen during the Oscars?
No, it just happened in some Hollywood Musso and Frank's or something, And yeah. I would not want to fight Robert Ryan, by the way.
No.
I mean, John Wayne had hands the size of canned hams, so I mean, he wasn't, he could be formidable, but Robert Ryan's this kind of wiry, lean, cat-like guy who always looks pissed off. Those are the guys you don't really want to scrap with.
In true old movies for young stoners fashion, when we talk about the Will Smith slap, it ends up being a discussion of Robert Ryan and John Wayne's hands.
Yeah. And a couple of announcements we'd like to make before we get into our first movie. Chalky the Funk Wizard, the recording artist behind the Old Movies for Young Stoners theme song, is coming to the Guild Theater in Menlo Park, California on Saturday, May 7th, where he'll be opening for Berlin.
Of Top Gun fame.
This show is sure to take your breath away, but get there early. Doors open at 7 because it is Menlo Park. And I'll be there because the Guild Theater is where I saw Clash of the Titans. Go to guildtheater.com for tickets and info. And that's theater with a TRE at the end.
The proper way.
Yeah, the proper way. So
is Clash of the Titans starring Harry Hamlin?
Yes.
Oh, I love him on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
It's the last Harryhausen movie.
Ah, Harry Hamlin, Harryhausen.
Yeah, we're getting to Harryhausen later,
I'm excited. Yes, that's so cool. Definitely old movies for stoners that I have not seen. And I just want to put a disclaimer out there. I want everyone to know that I'm coming into a lot of these movies blind here. And I make a point not to look up anything about these movies before or during when I'm watching them. I don't read the Wikipedias. I'm not reading Roger Ebert reviews. So I'm kind of coming in blind on this. So if I sound ignorant or naive when I discuss these movies, that's why. But I think it's more pure viewing experience. That's all.
Now, we don't want to go back to the 90s, Corey. I'm handling the mansplaining. I'm doing all the research. It's what I do.
Cool.
And if we had all these guys doing it, then it's like one of those conversations that I've been a part of way too much. And I've created these situations where it's a bunch of people trying to out mansplain each other. We don't really want to do that.
No, I like that I don't know anything about cinema.
No, it sounds it's better this way, and because we get an honest assessment of how the movie made you feel, which Roger Ebert, not to, one of his best pieces of advice, like when he first started writing movie criticism, was that you don't have to know everything about the filmmaker and about their history and about what went on before. You need to walk into the movie and just write about how that movie made you feel.
We at Old Movies for Young Stoners really want to hear from you. You can email us at oldmoviesforyoungstoners@gmail.com. That's oldmoviesforyoungstoners@gmail. All one word, no numbers in there. And you can join our 4 followers on Instagram at Old Movies for Young Stoners.
In approaching Valerie and the Week of Wonders, it's quite difficult to know whether you should say this is a horror film, this is a fantasy film, this is a soft porn film, this is an art film, because it's not really any of those things, and in some ways it's all of those things.
For our first film, we have Valerie and her Week of Wonders, a phantasmagoric treasure from the Czech New Wave that blends gothic horror, fairy tale imagery, art house expressionism, and a pinch of softcore porn into a mad fever dream where young Valerie experiences the first signs of womanhood and is quickly plagued by pervy priests, grotesque vampires who may or may not be long lost family members, and religious zealots who would burn her at the stake. Luckily, Valerie has a pair of magic earrings, but will these charms be enough to survive her fraught journey into adulthood? Corey, this film's your pick. Can you tell us something about it?
Well, I picked this movie because I've never seen it, and I wanted to see it, and it seemed really trippy. It is 1970, which is probably a little too late for this show. Maybe that should be the cutoff year for Old Movies for Young Stoners. I don't know. It seems pretty modern, and, I want to see some black and white grandpa movies for this show. But we watched it, and this movie is really, really weird. I was trying to figure out what it was about. Okay, it's this young girl. She has magic earrings. It's very European. There's people, parading around to oompa music in like old Victorian clothes and stuff. But then it gets really crazy, and there's really scary monsters in this movie. And after a while, I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to try to follow the plot. I'm just going to let this the dreamlike world wash over me. Because I don't think it's really about the plot. It's just about how the images make you feel, right? There's a lot of sex perverts in this movie, but I don't feel like this movie is sexy in any way. I'll say this movie is about a young girl discovering like that adults are sex perverts and gross. And they're very much portrayed, adults are very much portrayed as monsters in this movie, and they're very scary. There's old people who are like sucking the energy off of young people and becoming young, and it's all very trippy. But I will say, the music is super tight in this movie. It's almost like prog rock. The makeup and the costumes are legitimately scary. The set design is really, really freaky. It's essentially an Alice in Wonderland story with some hippy-dippy, trippy European sex vampires. There's orgies with oompa music in it. But I don't know. Oh, check this out. This movie is right at the sweet spot. It's 76 minutes, baby. So you could jump in and watch this stuff. Yet, it has a very bizarre pace that kind of gets boring for a little bit. It's like, even though it's so short, it does tend to drag because of its weird pace. But it's over soon. I like this movie a lot, and this is a movie that could never be made today because the star of the movie is 13, I believe. So, the whole grooming debate would definitely come into play here, GOP. That being said, like I was saying before, I don't feel like this movie is exploitive at all because it's not horny. It's about sex. It's about sex perverts, but it's definitely not sexy or horny. And I didn't feel like it was really sexualizing these situations. It was more grotesque to me. And I think it's okay to make movies about that because the world is a beautiful, amazing, magical place full of disgusting sex perverts, and I think that's what this movie is really about. But yeah, the makeup, the imagery is all super tight in this movie. I think it's essential viewing for people that are into really crazy surrealist stuff. If you're into like the Japanese horror movie Hausu, or if you're into Alejandro Jodorowsky, I say that this is essential viewing. Felina, what did you think of Valerie and her Week of Wonders?
So I also went into this blind. I had no idea at all what Valerie's Week of Wonders would look like. And I don't know if her week was very wonderful. So viewing this was, I might have smoked the wrong strain of weed, but I got freaked out. I got like this movie is scary, like legitimately scary. Oh my god, the main guy, the polecat guy,
the constable,
freaky. Constable,
who might be her dad. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out.
Grandfather.
Her what? I didn't know that.
Oh my god, yeah. No, it was a very shocking visually, but it was very beautiful. I think I don't know if I told you guys this, but I've looked up every movie on TikTok to see if there's any like fan edits or like see if there's any comments, and I do.
Thank you for doing the work. That is the work right there.
That is the thing that my 50-plus-year-old brain would never go to.
So there's a couple of comments that I think are very funny. Like 00XD says, this movie is a no! Exclamation point. This person who made that movie is sus, because every character in this movie touches her too much, and the camera angles, ... So I agree a little bit. I mean, it's not sus. I think it's just, it's just, it's a little creepy in that way. It might be though because I'm young and I'm like I am very like see from her perspective like how spooky. I don't know. It just it kind of freaked me out, this movie.
Yeah, the problem with both these movies that we're going to talk about today is that they're directed by men, right?
Yes.
And and as great as they are, like they're really trying to tell the story. I can't relate to Valerie at all, except that I know that the world is ugly and full of sex monsters. But I think it shouldn't be as troubling as this movie is in a modern lens. It shouldn't be dismissed. You know what I mean? I don't think it should be dismissed as that's just a movie made by a pervert. Like it is quite artistic achievement.
Yes.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
How much of it is our American lens on it too? Because like here women's breasts aren't shown in public because we come from Puritans, or that's what the country comes from. That in Europe, like women topless is not really a thing. So we might be assigning, I mean, it's definitely a pervy movie, and it's about basically Valerie. She has her period, which is symbolized by blood that looks like strawberry syrup hitting a white daisy. And then everybody in the whole town is trying to fuck her. And that is not that. It would have been better if it was addressed by a woman filmmaker. It would have definitely been better at that. But this is not this is something that happens in life, and something terrible that happens in life. And the movie does portray it as a terrible thing, because most of the people who are trying to do this are pederast priests. Which that's probably, it might be the first movie to call that one out in a big way. and also, you know, vampires and family members. It's about grooming, really.
It is. And wait, is Valerie like, it just hit me, like she, like maybe this like fantastic fairy tale that she's going through is like her way of dealing and processing all the bullshit going on in her life, right? Oh my God, what a movie.
That's what Little Red Riding Hood is about. I mean, that's what a lot of folk tales and fairy tales are about. I mean, Little Red Riding Hood, she has become a woman and she's wearing the red to symbolize that she has gotten her first period and has been through this. And then, you know, the wolf takes over her. You know, it's very much the same. Like the wolf is posing as a grandparent.
Fellini, do you think this movie was a dream?
So, okay, no.
Okay.
Here's the thing. My perspective of it, like when I watched the other movie first, Juliet of the Spirits first. And in my head, that one was like, oh, that's a dream. But then when I got to this one, I was like, this is all reality. Everything is real. And I don't know why I thought that. It just felt, to me, it just didn't feel as dreamlike. It felt very like literal, you know.
I mean, the other taboo in this movie that was quite shocking, besides the you know, Valerie being so young, is there's a lot of incest in this movie, I think, right? Is her brother trying to do her and stuff? Is that who that guy is? Egglet?
Egglet.
I believe he was an actor.
Yeah, they keep talking. She keeps talking about how actors are coming to town, which I didn't really
think that
grasp.
he was an actor.
Okay,
but also, like, if he is her brother, that's weird.
Well, I mean, her grandma turns into her second cousin and then tries to either bite her or make out with her at one point too. I mean, I like that this is all like we're not sure. I think it adds to the film, definitely. Like, was that her brother that she was just making out with? But I mean, talk about taboo. How often do you see incest so celebrated in a film? You know what I mean? Very rarely.
I don't think it is celebrated, though. I think this is these terrors that she has to navigate. That, to me, that's what makes it more dreamlike, though, is the way we don't really know. You know, when you have a dream, sometimes like, oh, he's your grandfather, he's the cop, he's the constable, or he's not your grandfather, he's your father, or he's your father that turns into your grandfather that turns into a weasel, the polecat, and he's a vampire. Like, just the way it kind of transfers from one thing to another. Although Eaglet, I will say, him saying, no, I'm not really your brother. I mean, he seems like the most genuinely concerned about her character, the second most, but he's also still trying to exploit her. And the whole, I'm not really your brother, also kind of sounds like, you know, family get-togethers, and then like, no, we're second cousins, it's okay. You know, it kind of sounded like that level of family pederasty. The one positive relationship, that sexual relationship that Valerie has, is with Hedvika, the woman, like her friend, her older friend, who gets married at the beginning of the movie, and she's married off to a rich, creepy old landowner. That it's obvious, like when he's groping her and Valerie's seeing this, that it is not a good thing for Hedvika at all. Not a good thing for her at all. But then Valerie and Hedvika lie together. Who knows how far it really goes, but that is like the only, like, Valerie's able to cure her vampire because the vampires bite Hedvika, and then Valerie is able to cure it. That the only, even remotely, if we just take away the age differences and everything, the only remotely positive relationship that she has in the movie that is not, you know, that is not colored by vampirism and zealotry and perversion at all, or, well, maybe not perversion, but pederast. Well, it's still pederasty. I don't know. Here we're going down we're on a slippery slope here, but the only remotely positive experience she has is a lesbian relationship.
She's a bicon.
What does that mean?
Bi-icon.
Oh, bicon. Thank you. Yeah. That's a really good point. The symbolism in this movie is very apparent. Valerie is always in all white, very pure. Her room is completely white. The vampires are always all dressed in black. The cellars are so dark. There's a lot of gothic cellars in this movie that are really cool looking. And there's like crazy orgies going on in them. There's orgies to like polka music, by the way. So if you've never seen an orgy put to polka music, please. And you know, of course, the red, the blood. Keep referring to this movie as softcore porn in a way. I think this, like I said before, I don't think this movie is very horny or sexy, even though it has to do with a lot with sex. Do you agree with me on that or not?
I don't think it's very sexy.
No, it doesn't have. It has no horny energy to the.
No,
this movie.
that energy is not horny. It's if anything, it's like more scary than horny.
Yeah.
But some people would argue that those things are like put together, scary and horny.
What did you think of the acting? I thought Valerie was a very good actor. Bob, what's the name of the actor playing Valerie?
It's Jaroslava Schallerová. There are like added features to this movie that probably come from the DVD or Blu-ray release that are on Criterion Channel. And there's an interview with her, and she was one of 1,500 young girls who auditioned for it. So she was just not an actor at the time.
I mean, what a face. Her face looks amazing in this movie. And her whole presence, I mean, she really carries the movie. But I think like everyone kind of does a really good job dealing with this crazy ass freaking script. And like, yeah, the constable, the guy, the monster guy, his faces are out of control. Like every single frame of this movie looks fucking crazy.
Jerzy Priests is the vampire constable polecat man, who may be her grandfather or her dad. Or, you know, and he's, yeah. And
the grandma who turns into the second cousin vampire, also very strong presence on screen, like very cool.
Yeah.
Freaky stuff.
I want to talk a little bit about the Czech New Wave, because when you watch this movie, and I'm surprised this movie, and what's that Soviet witch movie that Greg Franklin wants to do eventually that's on Shudder? V. I'm surprised these movies exist, because the Czechoslovakia, not the Czech Republic, it is two countries kind of combined into one after World War I, actually. It is behind the Iron Curtain when this film is made. And in 1964, we have the Czech New Wave in film, which there's a liberalization of Czechoslovakia at the time. And they're not really breaking away from the Soviet Union, but they are liberalizing. And so from 1964 to 1968, you have these Czech New Wave films. The most prominent director, or the best remembered director to come out of it, is Milos Forman, who directed Amadeus and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He fled because in August 1968, after the Prague Spring, the Soviets sent the tanks in. And they basically crushed Czechoslovakia's turn to liberalism. And so that this movie came out in 1970, and it's considered the last of the Czech New Wave films. And it is, it's amazing it came out, but there's a thing where, like the Soviets didn't consider folk tales to be threatening. So you could say a lot of shit. If you were making a movie, where it takes place in the past and it's based on some old folk tale or has old folk tale themes, then you could get away with more, that the Soviet censors wouldn't really pay attention to it the way they would if it was a contemporary drama, as a lot of the other Czech New Wave films were. And the director, I don't really know what happened to him, Jaromil Járos. He also directed a movie called The Joke, which is kind of topical, goes back to what we were talking about earlier today, where a person tells an offhanded joke at a party and gets in trouble with Soviet authorities and communist authorities. And that's on archive.org. So I want to watch that. And a lot of these people, a lot of musicians, like they had like the Czech Bob Dylan or the Czechoslovakian Bob Dylan, and people, they had to either flee or they were jailed after the crackdown. So, and one last thing, I had to watch a lot of stuff about the fucking Soviet tanks rolling in, and their justification for it to the Russian soldiers or the Soviet soldiers at the time was that West German agitators had invaded Czechoslovakia. So it was the same thing they say about the Nazis in Ukraine. It has a thread to what's going on in Ukraine now. It's a history repeating itself.
Wow.
Yeah, and the Russian military in Ukraine now is destroying museums, old art, the Ukrainian, they're trying to destroy Ukraine's history. And so it's important to preserve these things before authoritarian governments destroy them. So I'm glad this movie exists for all its troubling for all its troubling backstory and all its troubling content. I'm glad this thing exists. And if there's any other movies this fucking crazy from the Czech New Wave, I cannot wait to check them out.
Yeah, there's a movie called Daisies, and the screenplay and production design is by Esther Krumbachava, and she was a co-writer of this movie and also Daisies, and she did the production design. So a lot of the look of both films, she's responsible as much as the directors of those films are. So,
wow, what an achievement on her part. Like, what a visual stunner this movie is. I kind of wish every movie looked like this.
So we talk about the director being a man, but there is a woman screenwriter of Valerie and Her Week of Wonders. So we should acknowledge that. Good. That she's definitely a big force. And I didn't go down deeply enough in the rabbit hole to see if these people were jailed or if they were exiled. It's this movie, like a lot of the scholarship on the Czech New Wave, didn't really talk about this movie much. This movie's like a more recent discovery.
Well, I gotta imagine hippies watching this in 1970 tripped the fuck out. You know what I'm saying? I wonder if it was a midnight movie ever, or if how it came to the States at all. Maybe I don't know.
I don't think it did until later. I think if Roger Corman got a hold of it, I would have seen it already. Because of this, I hadn't seen this. This is rare.
I will say, I don't know why, but when I did look this up on TikTok, there were a lot of people that were like recommending this movie. Lots of people that were like really like I would say it's so beautiful that it's very like it's very TikTokable.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, because it's got that like coquette aesthetic. That very like put it to some Lana Del Rey music.
Oh, this movie has so much Lana Del Rey energy. Yes. I can't believe it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Another comment was that someone couldn't find they didn't have this movie in their region, and someone said, "Oh, I'm manifesting it for you." Yeah.
So what weed would you recommend with this?
Okay, well, I think you should get completely outer space blotzoed for these 76 minutes. So I recommend, when I just want to go to outer space, I recommend these pills, these little soft gel caps made by ABX. They look like they're in an ibuprofen bottle, and they're 100 milligram, just straight THC pills. Give me 45 minutes after I take one of those, and I am done for the day, and I am in outer space. And this is such a trippy movie. I don't want to do mushrooms or acid. I just want to almost do mushrooms or acid. So I'd say take 100 milligram pill, or, whatever your tolerance is. I know some fools that 100 milligrams is what they do every day. That's fucking crazy. Me, I take 100 milligrams like once a month when I just really want to escape this horrible world of sex perverts. So I say take 100 milligram pill of ABX soft gel caplets. Felina, you said you smoked the wrong shit for this, right?
I think so. I think so, because I was smoking this indica I'd never smoked before called Platinum Purple, and I think I either got not high enough or like way too high, because I was smoking like I had been smoking like all day. And I think I needed to either have not smoked earlier, or I needed to just absolutely be way too dead to even realize, you know what I mean? Or am I not making sense?
No, you're making sense.
Okay. But yeah, I smoked platinum purple flower. I think I needed to be like fully like knocked fully on my ass. Completely, because I was still like leading forward like what is happening? I think I just needed to sit back and be like, just experience it. Just experience it all.
Valerie and her Week of Wonders is now streaming on the Criterion channel. And if you're so inspired, you can find Jaromil Jaresh's short film Uncle there, which has some similar themes in its 6 minutes. His film The Joke, which I haven't watched yet but definitely want to, is streaming at archive.org. We're working on a bit of a theme here in this week's Old Movies for Young Stoners. In Valerie and her Week of Wonders, we had a girl overcome by surreal and haunting visions as she enters adulthood. In Juliet of the Spirits, we have a woman overcome by surreal and haunting visions as she copes with the disillusionment of middle age. But this movie comes from Il Maestro, Federico Fellini in 1965, and it stars his muse and wife, Giulietta Masina. Like the first film, we have ghosts, demonic possession, creepy nuns, and even the burning of heretics. But this time, it's all set to a jaunty Nino Rota score with Fellini's quirky sense of wonder. Felina, Corey, have either of you seen this movie before?
I have not seen this movie before. And in fact, this is my first ever Fellini film. As you can tell, my name is loosely based off of Fellini.
Whoa, mind blown.
Not loosely. I mean, they found my name in a baby book, and then it was like, oh, it's also kind of sounds like Fellini. Cool. Okay, so this is my first Fellini movie. It's very fun. It's very beautiful. I thought it was gorgeous. I thought it was super long. I smoked probably like 6 times throughout, like consecutive, like trying to just keep getting high because my high kept coming down, and I was like, no, I need to stay up. I need to stay up for this, and it just was not happening. One of my favorite notes that I have written down is, who the fuck is Gabriella? I loved this movie. I thought it was gorgeous. My absolute favorite part was when they met the intersex psychic who was wearing all white, and it was just freaky and fun and cool. I thought it was a great movie to just put on, even if you weren't like fully listening to it. I thought the soundtrack, the music was incredible. But even if you weren't like fully listening to it, the visuals just stunning, perfect. I loved this one, and the costumes. Ooh,
I mean, gosh, the Italian couture, just like the most modern hip stuff everyone was wearing. It was quite stunning to see on film in this like bold color. You know what I mean? Even like the husband's pajamas were cool in this movie.
Now, I should probably say that Giulietta, she suspects that her husband is cheating on her. Her husband's a successful businessman who's always having these long days at the office. And the movie is like a series of people giving her advice. The very, very sexually active neighbor next door is giving her advice to get laid more. She talks to private eyes who go and follow the husband around, and she talks to gurus and psychics and everything, and they're all giving her this advice. And Juliet is the one. She's kind of plain middle-aged woman, and she's navigating through all this sometimes conflicting advice, but still trying to find her way of dealing with this situation.
It was a little bit for me hard to follow, but it was really just, I was so into the visuals and the music and it was so pretty that I was like, you know, fuck her husband, you know, she should just marry this pretty lady next door.
Pretty lady with the water slide in the treehouse.
With the sex treehouse. Come on.
And the sex water slide too,
and
right?
The sex water
The water
slide.
slide is right next to her freaking bed. That's amazing. I've never seen this movie either. If you ever wanted to see an episode of The Real Housewives directed by Federico Fellini, this is it. I mean, it has everything. It is The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Exactly. They even go to like a new age guru. There's a multi-level marketing thing going on. They're getting drunk during the day. Like, it's amazing. Can I, if I could be a little crude here for a second, this movie has the hottest women I've ever seen in a movie. Like, every woman in this movie looks amazing and beautiful. All the guys look whatever, but just like the women are dressed to the nines and they all have these strong personalities. So cool. And surreal and fantasy, dreamlike. You know, when I saw 8.5 when I was 15 or 16 or whatever, of course it changed my life. You know, I'm that basic bitch that thinks Federico Fellini is like awesome. Nights at the Cabiria blew me away when I saw it. And in that movie, Giulietta Masina is like just so effervescent. And Lestrada too. Just like so blowing and bubbly up on the screen. But here she seems very subdued and kind of sad throughout the whole movie. I guess that's a choice, and I guess that's what she's supposed to be.
Now is it though? Because you know, this is a Fellini made this is a companion piece to 8.5. Fellini 8.5. Marcello Mastroianni is playing a philandering movie director who is juggling between his mistress, who's played by the Treehouse Lady, and Masina, who is Masina the wife in that? I forget who the wife is in 8.5.
I don't believe she is. No.
Yeah, but this is the companion piece, and this is all probably pretty autobiographical. So he makes this other film about the wife, the long-suffering wife, and so it's his view of that. And that's like one of the problems. The film is amazing, and it's one of my favorite Fellini movies, but it is a problem with it, is that it's Fellini's view of her journey. And, you know, and it's of course like one of the big pieces of advice is like, oh, you know, be like the loose neighbor next door and be all sexy and have your, you know, like that's just maybe not an option for her.
No, that aspect really hit me about halfway through when I started noticing the similarities with 8.5. Well, it wouldn't be a Fellini movie without some fucking clowns in a carnival, right? So that's in there, and some fucking parades and shit. But it hit me. I'm like, oh, it's him flipping 8.5. Okay, my stoned mind got that. Sorry, I'm a little slow. It took me to halfway through the movie to get that. But and then I started thinking about how his films are autobiographical. And, you know, at first I was looking at it in a modern lens like, fuck, I don't want to watch this fucking movie about rich, privileged Italians. And I'm like, oh, he's making a movie about after he got successful and he started partying and probably didn't pay attention to his wife anymore. And it is very self-indulgent in that way. I mean, he's probably the most self-indulgent director, but it works with him, right?
Yeah. It's a gift to his wife, but it's like the biker dude who gets a wrench for his wife.
Exactly.
You know? But there's a bit of fuck, marry, kill in this for Juliet, because it's like, you know, she should fuck the really hot guy from the kind of Italian orgy, the impossibly attractive man. And then
eyebrows on that guy.
eyeliner.
He's so sexy. Yeah. Oh my God, that guy is hot.
And then the Spaniard guy who comes over and mixes the sangria, that's who she should marry. And then she should kill her husband so she could fucking marry the other two guys.
Exactly.
Pop got it right. This movie deals with all the things that Fellini movies deals with: religious oppression, sexual oppression. When was this made? In the mid-60s?
65.
Okay, 65 full color Fellini for me, watching it for the first time was really fun and exciting. To see him work in this way. It's because it's not his old feeling. I don't know. It was really cool. But so I will say, with all the dreamlike surreal stuff and the jaunty Nino Rota score and the whimsy and the clowns in the carnival, this motherfucker Fellini still manages to break my heart and make me cry with how he gets to the nitty gritty of what makes us sad when we're in relationships. He really nails it, and I really feel for his wife. And if this is autobiographical, it is so sad, and this is a very heartbreaking, sad movie. And as Felina said, it is fucking long. I think we're almost at 2.5 hours. This movie.
It is,
and it could.
Yeah.
It could have got. I would have been happy with 30 minutes cut out of it. But no, not a frame is wasted. It is so beautiful to look at. And the Nino Rota score has everything you'd ever want in a Nino Rota score.
Another favorite of mine were all of the quirky like characters who come in the beginning, those weird psychic people. I'm like, that's all of my friends. That's just every gay person in the 20-mile radius of where I am right now.
I mean, Italy in the 60s is LA in the 2020s. It is so modern feeling, this movie.
Yeah, super.
And, really, it's aged incredibly well, this movie. And like I said, like they're going to like new age gurus. There's like people trying to scam her with stuff. It's very modern. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I was I want to put in a plug here for BAM PFA, Berkeley Art Museum Pacific Film Archive, because last weekend they screened this, and it's the Fellini Centennial, so it's part of their Fellini 100 series that is going on through May 14th. So even after we get this edited, there should still be, some screenings of Satyricon and Knights of Cabiria and Roma, which is the one I really want to see. But I was lucky enough to see it there, but I drove instead of taking BART, so I wasn't stoned, because BART, like you can always look into somebody smoking a big fat blunt in a BART car, where the whole BART car becomes like, one of those vaping balloons. So I didn't do that. I drove. So I the first time I watched it for this, I wasn't high. But yeah, go to bampfa.org. They are, if you are in the San Francisco Bay Area or the East Bay especially, you should go to BAM PFA, Berkeley Art Museum, and in downtown Berkeley, and see some of these movies. So I mean, seeing it projected that well and on the big screen is really the way to go if you can see any of the remaining Fellini films that way.
I would love to lose myself in a dark theater watching this movie for sure. But also, I had a pretty damn good time just by myself on the couch.
So what got you high off your ass, both of you?
So I had these pre-rolls. I don't know the tea with Lowell Smokes. I don't know the vibe. I had a friend who worked for them, and then she was like, but she's also like not really my friend. She's just like an acquaintance. She like worked for them, and then she was like, I hate them. They suck. But she's also kind of known to be like dramatic. So I don't know. I don't know the tea. Don't know the tea about Lowell Smokes. Don't at me, Sammy, but I did buy them.
Drama.
I love it.
But yeah, so I had the Happy Hybrid. This was a joint. I thought it was perfect. I felt super like light and airy. And watching this, I was just like, I felt like with the music, my head was like ping-ponging back and forth. I was like, yes! That Happy Hybrid from Lowell, not Spawn, Happy Hybrid from Lowell, and then this movie just made me feel like I was like sailing through like happy waters.
This movie is definitely enhanced by being high while watching it. So I highly recommend a high THC percentage strain if you can. The one I smoked was called Wedding Cake. It is 24% THC. It is a very potent type of indica hybrid strain made from crossing Triangle Kush and Animal Mints. And fun fact to our Canada listeners, this strain is called Pink Cookies in Canada, so you too can get it. as Felina said, I was smoking throughout because this movie's so fucking long that you do come down during it. So keep your high, maintain, and let Fellini's dreamlike self-indulgence wash over you.
Juliet of the Spirits is streaming on HBO Max and the Criterion Channel.
And to recap, our weed recommendations from earlier in the show, Felina and I both recommended you get completely blotzoed for Valerie and her Week of Wonders and take a 100 milligram soft gel cap.
Once again, Old Movies for Young Stoners really wants to hear from you. You can email us at oldmoviesforyoungstoners@gmail.com or follow us on Insta at Old Movies for Young Stoners. No numbers, just letters, all one word. We're on Twitter at OM4Y Stoners. That's OM4Y Stoners on Twitter. Drop us a line and feel free to suggest movies and weed for future episodes.
And that about wraps up our fabulous 5th episode. Can you believe we've recorded 5 of these things now?
You know, it seems like we've recorded 50. And I am so sick of European dreamlike surrealism. I can't wait to get out of this fucking area.
So yeah, we're gonna lighten things up next week, or in 2 weeks, or 2 weeks plus, with some fucking monster movies. We're doing some fucking monster movies next time. So we're lightening things up a bit with 20 Million Miles to Earth, a 1950s Ray Harryhausen movie where a rampaging monster from Venus destroys Rome, and by Felina's request, the batshit bizarro kaiju craziness of All Monsters Attack. That's all right here on Old Movies for Young Stoners.